Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council meeting of Tuesday, April 2nd. This is a regular meeting and I'll call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Before we have public comment, I want to just once again say thank you to our entire city staff, especially the public works staff, for all they did to make a water break as painless as possible. And I would also like to encourage everyone that is not signed up for alerts to please do that, because that's a really great way of communicating when we have these things. Of course, we're finished with them. We're not going to have any more of those kinds of things, but just in case, it's always good to be informed. So we'll start with public comment, and I'd like to remind everyone, we like to keep it under 3 minutes and be kind and respectful. Start with your name and mailing address. Is there anyone in the audience? Beth?
Beth Holland, 3607 East Chinook. Madam Mayor and City Council, I'm here tonight because on April 24th and 25th of this month, Oregon Parks and Recreation will be meeting here in Cannon Beach. That's the commissioners and the staff. And it's a real opportunity for the city to hopefully engage in some kind of dialogue that about the property that my family owns on Haystack Hill, adjacent to the park. A 9-acre park is just south of our land. Our land is a promontory that juts out directly over Haystack Rock, and at one time was probably connected to the rock. It's an incredible view property of the Tillamook Head, the lighthouse. It's been in our family for 50 years, and it's our hope as a trust that the land could be protected, that we could move it forward in some fashion, either as in joining it with the state park as a state park, or there's an opportunity that could be a city park as well. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And this meeting on the 24th and 25th is a very important time that the city and the parks commissioners and staff could maybe make some headway in developing a relationship that would lead to the park being preserved over time. So I've sent a letter in front of you that I was going to read tonight, but I think I'll just leave it there with you. And also in the coming weeks, I'll be sending out additional information by email and things that have already happened with OPRD. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next. Anyone in the audience? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak? If you would raise your hand.
Randy Neal has his hand up.
Okay, Randy. Good evening.
Yes, I'd like to give some inputs on the system development charge again.
Okay,
The parks, Randy Neal, PO Box 1092. The parks system development charge is basically 95% driven by the NACOOS Parks Master Plan. When the SDC was developed, there was no funding plan for that park. And basically it was set up to be funded 30% by future residents and 70% by existing residents. We all now know that this is going to be funded by the tourism tax. It's going to be free to existing residents, so it should be free to future residents. It was justified on a master parks project. It can't, SDCs are basically justified on a project and can't be reused on some other project. No bait and switch kind of activity should be going on. So I still believe that that parks SDC should basically be eliminated or massively reduced.
thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? One more time in the audience, anyone? Okay, thank you. So we will start this evening with a presentation, and we have the Sunset Empire Transportation District Executive Director here with us today to give us a presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is part of our continuing effort to get out in the community and explain what's happened, how we're dealing with the situation moving forward, and how we plan on reestablishing services that were taken away last year.
Okay.
First off, introducing myself. My name is Craig Johnston. I'm the new executive director. I've been there since October 29th, so about 5 months. It's been quite an interesting challenge. A little background for myself. I have over 25 years of transit experience in Washington and Oregon. I was most recently the operations manager down in Klamath Falls for Basin Transit Service. And I love the area up here. It's been a nice relocation. This is one of the most beautiful places in the country, especially Cannon Beach. I just love it here. Moving on. Sunset Empire is guided by a 7-member board of commissioners. Debbie Booth Schmidt is our chair, and she's present today. Thank you for coming, Debbie. Tracy McDonald's our vice chair. Pamela Allegria is our secretary treasurer. And we also have Rebecca Reed, Charles Withers, Guillermo Romero, and Paul Lewicki on our board. Paul Lewicki was the interim executive director before I was hired, and kind of got the ball rolling on bringing some stability to the organization and getting services restarted after the collapse. Just a little background on Sunset Empire. It was formed on March 24th, 1993. The Clatsop County Board of Commissioners voted to create the district with the help of a state transit grant. Sunset Empire is a special district, similar to fire and irrigation districts in the state of Oregon. The district relies on property taxes, timber taxes, state taxes, federal funding, and bus fares to provide services to the citizens of Clatsop County. Sunset Empire operates all facets of public transportation with our own employees in Clatsop County. The leadership team of the district consists of myself, the executive director, a chief operating officer, a finance manager, a mobility manager, an executive assistant, and a human resources manager. Today, the district operates 4 fixed route buses and 3 to 5 paratransit buses, depending on ridership. The district serves a population of 41,000. We averaged 500 daily rides before our services ceased. Since restarting services, we're averaging about 250 daily riders. And this is our ridership. You see, before the collapse, January through April of last year, we were doing roughly 12 all the way up to 14,000 riders a month. In May, that dropped significantly because we see services in April. And you can see with the restart of services that we've been steadily climbing back up. Right now, we're at about 50% of what we did before the collapse. One of our most promising routes is the Cannon Beach route, believe it or not. In the last 2 months, ridership's gone up about 40% since it was restarted after the collapse. We're seeing some significant growth in ridership here. And then what everybody wants to know, the financial crisis, what happened? What caused the financial collapse and the cessation of services? On April of 2023, Sunset Empire ran out of money. SETD was delayed in receiving federal funding. During the delayed disbursement of federal funds, SETD utilized state and local funds to meet payroll and continue serving the citizens of Clatsop County. The Board of Directors and ODOT were presented inaccurate financial information that reported the district still had over $800,000 in available funds to continue running operations. That money was not there. The Board of Directors was not made aware of Sunset Empire's precarious financial position until mid-April of 2023. Eventually, the state and local funds that SETD was using to provide services to the citizens of Clatsop County ran out, and SETD ceased operations on 4/29/23. With the help of Governor Tina Kotek, State Senator Suzanne Weber, and State Rep Cyrus Jabati, SETD was given a $1 million loan from the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank to restart services the following week. The loan will be paid back on a quarterly basis through the year 2027. So that's basically what happened in a nutshell, and how we were able to reestablish services with the loan. But what's important is the way forward, how we prevent something like this from happening again. And one of the most important things is the better community networking, getting out in the community, communicating with city councils, different organizations in the community, be more linked in the community. Cooperative and constructive expansion in the future that meets the needs and interests of our community. Transparency of SETD's finances is paramount moving forward. SETD's financial collapse has happened not once, but twice. It also occurred back in 2011. So why did that happen? One of the issues was the transparency to the board. We've put financial policies in place and made changes internally to make sure that the board knows exactly where we stand financially. I'm gonna give you an example. We're about to set up where we have our bank statements not only sent to us directly at SETD, but also to the Secretary Treasurer, so that she can compare those and make sure that the finances are in alignment. One of the problems is the board not receiving that information. You know, if they had that information before the collapse, they could have seen the bank account going down. Oh, we got, $50,000 left in the bank account. What's going on here? So it'll lead to more questioning if there are any issues in the future. We also have board approved policies that diversify the roles in our small organization. Budget oversight, travel restrictions, and whistleblower protections are now in place and are now policies that have been approved by the board. One of the key features in the collapse also was the executive director held all the power in the organization. He was the budget officer. He controlled the budget. He did all the reporting to the board. So what we've done is we've divested the powers of the executive director so that the finance director will now be our budget officer, working in conjunction with myself so that we can present accurate and good information to our board moving forward. Required staff and board of commissioners training on district financial management. The executive director, finance director, and 6 board members have attended UDOT's transit district financial management training. We've also attended Oregon budget law training and several other trainings so that the financial acumen within the organization is quite different than it was just last year. We have also established a reserve fund, and in the new budget year, we're going to try to increase that. And that was something that the organization had in the past, but it really didn't exist. And finally, a feasible, responsible restoration of services. One of the big gaps in our reestablishment of services has been Warrenton. They haven't had any services except the 101 which passes by Ed Fred Meyer since last year. We are on track to restart that route May 1st. We should be able to announce that in the next couple of weeks. And that should give us the foundations of having a basic transit for this community. Where we go from there, I don't know. I will tell you this, we're going to be fiscally responsible moving forward, and we're going to make sure that the organization does not get into any financial jeopardy. Well, thank you. Any questions?
Anybody have questions?
Yeah, in the past, we've had a summer shuttle program that we've run with you. And I definitely, I can understand the board's position about moving forward with fiscal responsibility, but it is something that is important to the community, and we'd like to work with you to see how we can make that happen.
Yeah.
At least I would.
And then that was the topic. We had our team management meeting this morning. That was one of the topics that we talked about. And from everything I've heard, it was extremely successful. And you've thrown money into the pot too. So it's not like it's just, you know, us doing that service.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if we'll be able to get to it this summer, but I would definitely look for something possibly next summer. But I wouldn't have to meet with whoever would be responsible for that with my team so that we can kind of go over some future opportunities moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, thank you and good luck.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Craig.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a public hearing for the Harnett right-of-way waiver for 3823 Pacific. I'd like to open the public hearing. This is a hearing regarding the application for waiver from requirement to remove an encroachment of private improvement into public street right-of-ways. Travis Burnett and Leslie Von Epperstein request for waiver to allow a brick paver parking spot located in the public right-of-way. This property is located at 3823 Pacific Avenue, tax lot 02300, map 41006 BC. The request will be reviewed against the criteria of the Municipal Code Section 1238-060 waiver of requirement. Does any counselor have a conflict of interest? Any council member have personal bias? Has any counselor had any ex parte contacts? Has any counselor member made a site visit? Site visit? Is there a staff report? Karen?
The Hartnetts, who own 3823 Pacific, are requesting a right-of-way waiver under Cannon Beach Ordinance 12.38.060. See attachment D in your packet, to allow approximately 24 inches of existing Grasscrete pavers to remain in place in the city's right-of-way as part of their newly completed landscape and driveway design. Last fall, Hartnett's hired Green Hills Construction to landscape their yard after a remodel of the home. The landscape design included a new driveway designed with Grasscrete pavers. The pavers extended significantly into the city's right-of-way. See attachment A in your packet. Per Cannon Beach Ordinance 12.38.040, see attachment D. The contractor and homeowner were contacted by the city regarding the encroachment. The contractor explained the purpose of the landscape design and the items he was tasked with working into the design. Two key factors were a raised wall, see attachment A in your packet, and an old growth tree they carefully incorporated into the new landscape design. After talking with the city staff, the landscaper was given a copy of Cannon Beach Ordinance Chapter 1238, encroachments into public street right-of-way. See attachment D in your packet. And asked to make the appropriate modifications to to follow the ordinance. The contractor reached out to Public Works asking for consideration of a waiver following modifications he would make to remove most of the Grasscrete pavers from the city's right-of-way. He was asking the city to allow for approximately 24 inches of the Grasscrete pavers to remain in place as part of the challenge to address the raised wall and their desire to incorporate the old growth tree into the design. In preparation for the staff report, Public Works has provided a utility map, see attachment C in your packet, showing council the area that would have to be excavated should we have a water or sewer failure requiring repairs. All city utilities are on the opposite side of the street from where the waiver area is being considered. Should excavation need to occur, it would be unlikely the area where the 24 inches of Grasscrete pavers exist, as well as the old growth tree, would need to be disturbed to make the necessary repairs. As you know, historically, right-of-way waivers are granted on a very rare occasion and are usually driven based on a unique situation, as well as the potential impact to the city's critical infrastructure underground. In this specific case, the city does not have underground utilities that would be obstructed by this waiver request. In addition, the old growth tree that has been in place for years was obviously considered when infrastructure was added at the time the home was built. These factors make this request a reasonable one, in that it would be very unlikely that the waiver area would ever have to be excavated to repair a line break. After your review and consideration of the waiver request, provide staff with directions for moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there any additional correspondence? Okay, thank you. Criteria applicable to this request are in Municipal Code Chapters 1238-060 waiver requirement. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward criteria described in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which you believe to apply to the decision. Is there a presentation by the applicants? Come on up.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Derek Gilliland, owner of Green Hills Construction. So you want me to kind of summarize what I'm trying to do?
Sure.
So we installed some turf stone pavers. They're a concrete, if you're not familiar, they're a concrete paver that looks like a lattice on the ground. To grow plants and or grass through them so that they look more natural and drainage and all that. At the time, we weren't aware that when we were doing the drive, we weren't aware we were encroaching so far down to the street. We went to the natural asphalt that was in the road on Pacific. So we just brought it down and made a natural drop there because it was gravel. So we didn't have any intent to encroach. But then once we realized we got a kind notification that we had encroached, I think it's about 7 feet that we encroached, 7 or 8 feet is the actual encroachment. Maybe closer to 9, somewhere right in there. Anyways, I talked to Karen, or went to them and asked them, what can we do? We have a tree on one side and we installed a raised retaining wall to create a raised sitting area for the front yard. They have very little yard in the front. It's mostly driveway and there's like a 7x7 area over by a very large tree. And if we move the pavers back to that line, that would still be within your 24-inch encroachment. But what happens is if I move it any farther back, they're going to lose that little retaining wall that we did and lose that patio, basically. It's going to throw kind of the whole system off the way that it looks. And if you've seen pictures, it looks pretty good. That's going to be a major redesign for us to try to figure that out. And it will take away very little yard they already have because of 2 large trees. They have two large trees that encroaches, they can't do anything with the structure and we don't want to do anything to. So we're trying to just give them a little bit back there.
Anyone have any questions? For the applicant? Okay,
Oh, I just have one question. So they do intend, the intention is to keep that tree. Is that correct?
Absolutely, there's actually two, yeah. But the major one, yeah, my clients are very aware of the trees and, yeah, they definitely want to preserve at all costs. We were very careful working around them. We didn't dig around them, nothing like that, no excavation. So our full intent is to keep them, absolutely.
any other questions? Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Are there any proponents who wish to speak? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Jim Bates. I live at 3864 Pacific Ave. So I'm right across the street. I'm the one that has to look at it. It's very nice. The design is very well thought out. It integrates nicely with the trees, and yes, that one is a particularly nice and very large tree. I thought the choice of the grass pavers was a great idea because that would limit the amount of runoff onto the street and sort of thing. And the whole point of the area, it's right in front of a very large double garage, so it provides off-street parking if they have visitors, which I like because again, I'm right across the street. But basically, and it shouldn't have a runoff problem. Basically, it's an attractive solution and I like to keep looking at it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents who wish to speak? Is there a staff response?
Other than I would just reiterate that, when it comes to anything encroaching in our right of way, we're very protective of that for the purpose of the infrastructure. Anytime that there would be a risk that the city would be liable for any damage because they have to open up the street or anything to be able to make repairs, I'm super sensitive to that. And I think you've seen that in many things that we brought forward to you. This is definitely the exception to the rule. Derek and I had a very in-depth conversation about this. I consulted with my wastewater and water team as well as my assistant director to make sure everybody was comfortable with us making this exception, and they were. So it is staff's recommendation that council approve this request.
Okay, does the applicant have anything else?
Nope.
Like to say? Okay. So I'm going to close the hearing and move to consideration.
It seems to me, for me, the crowning ask here is to preserve the old growth tree. And because of that, and because it doesn't interfere at all with Public Works, and that Public Works does not have a problem with it, and even the neighbors don't have a problem with it, I think it's a very reasonable request for a waiver.
Anyone else have any comments?
I think it meets all the criteria for a waiver.
So do we need a motion or are you
Yeah.
just looking for direction?
I move to approve. It's the bottom here.
We-
I move to approve the application for waiver for requirement to remove an encroachment of private improvement into public streets rights of way located at 3823 Pacific Avenue, tax lot 02300, map 41006 BC.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council President,
Yes.
Councillor Hayes,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you, council.
thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a resolution 2405 for the purpose of updating system development charges to reflect inflation-related increases.
Where you have,
Ordinance 2402 first.
Oh, did I? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Okay. Rewind. Okay, first let's go to ordinance 2402. 2402 is an ordinance amending the municipal code chapters 1.24.010, 4.01200, 5.12050, 514.090, and 12.28040. Bruce.
Thank you, ma'am. The November 7th, 2023 meeting, council adopted an ordinance to remove the word misdemeanor from the Cannon Beach Municipal Code under prohibition on attracting and feeding wild animals. The word misdemeanor was found in other areas of the code. On November 14th and December 12th meetings, council reviewed those areas of the code and discussed if modification should be made to the amount of the fines listed in addition to the removal of the word misdemeanor. Further review of the code also revealed other parts of the code where violations were made criminal and resulted in jail time or imprisonment. As such, those sections of the code were also included here to be updated so that the only penalty for violations of the code would be monetary fines. This does not impact the ability of the police to cite individuals for criminal behavior, but those criminal citations would go to Clatsop County for potential prosecution, etc. It was also discovered the code had a general penalty section under chapter 1.24, which indicated which jail individuals would be imprisoned at, but there was no establishment of a general penalty. A general penalty provision states that in the event there is no set fine, i.e. within the code, for a violation of the code, a fine might still apply in setting an amount for that fine. In the attached revised code language, the general penalty amount is listed as up to $1,000 per day. Staff recommends council adopt ordinance 2402, and there are recommended motions in the staff report for council.
Anybody have any questions?
Not a question. I think this is what we asked for.
Yep.
One comment under chapter 4.01 special events. I'm pulling a Nancy here.
Oh,
It seems to be missing the word
B.
B.
Yeah.
This chapter will be punishable by a fine of up to $1,000.
good catch, Gary.
oh, why not?
Did we have that one too?
Yeah, I did. Why not $1 million? I think $1 million.
Anything else?
Move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2402.
Second.
Okay, ordinance 2402, an ordinance amending the municipal code chapters 1.24.010, 4.01200, 512.050, 514.090, 908.050, and 1228.040. Any discussion? Okay, roll
Is that a
call.
motion as amended?
Yes, thank you, Gary.
Oh, and okay with the second?
I am.
Okay. Is that you?
As long as
Okay,
that's
okay,
with
okay.
that clarification.
Okay. So roll call for the first reading?
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes,
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
I move to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance number 2402.
second,
Ordinance 2402, an ordinance amending the municipal code chapters 1.24010, 4012000, 512.050, 514.090, 908.050, and 1228.040. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Ogilvy,
yes,
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. So ordinance 2402 has been adopted and will become effective 30 days from adoption. Thank you. And next, we're going to go to Resolution 2405 for the purpose of updating system development charges to reflect inflation-related increases. Karen?
Keep this there. This is a follow-up to our meeting or earlier meeting with council, and the background of this issue is per municipal code 3.16.040. The city manager shall report to the city council annually with respect to the inflationary calculation of SDCs. Such calculations will be based upon changes in the ENR, Dictionary News Records Construction Index. At the March 12th, 2024 meeting, City Council deferred the decision to adopt Resolution 2208 for the purpose of adopting a new system development charge methodology and establishing new rates for water, wastewater, stormwater, parks. Council asked staff to bring back further clarification based on a letter received, see attachment A in your packet, from a Cannon Beach resident expressing concerns over the way the calculations had been done by FCS and proposed to council by staff. Staff asked FCS consultant to review the letter received by the Cannon Beach resident and provide interpretation and clarification regarding the expressed concerns. The following responses from FCS consultant Doug Gabbard, and I have Doug on the phone tonight. In compliance with Oregon statutes, the current methodology recommends that the city use the ENR News Record Construction Cost Index. The city average is as the basis for adjusting SDCs annually. The percentage increase of the index from the last update on March 12th, 2023 to January 2025 is 1.012%, which represents a $107 total increase over last year. Should the city council determine upon this annual review that the city increase SDCs as recommended by the adopted methodology, staff will bring a resolution to the next meeting for council's adoption per Cannon Beach Municipal Code, section 3.16.0 and 316.050 and ORS chapter 223, which provide that the city council shall by resolution establish and modify SDCs, methodologies, and rates. After council discussion on the proposed changes and additional information provided by FCS, consultant provides staff with direction on agreed upon changes. And Doug, can you hear us?
Yes, I absolutely can.
Questions for Doug from council based on the review?
Are there any questions? Do you have one?
No, I just made a face. It's like,
Made a face? Oh, please.
what?
Behaviors. No questions?
Yes, I have one question.
Okay.
The citizen made the point that current residents aren't paying for the park, so future residents should not have to pay for increased park capacity. Is there anything in SDCs that would require that, or?
So, there is, to be as charitable as possible, let me deal with the tiny grain of truth in all of that. We're talking about the am I pronouncing this correctly? Necus?
Necus Park, yes.
Necus Park. Okay. So if you had a park, if you were in the middle of doing an SDC methodology and you had a project that you intended to do, but you had no intention of ever using SDCs to fund that park, and you knew you were going to use some other funding source to fund that project, then you would want to keep that project cost out of your SDC methodology. This is something that we typically counsel cities where grants are involved. That's a more common situation where there's a project they're interested in doing, and they would only do it if they get the grant, and if they don't get the grant, they're not going to do the project at all. Then if you know the only way you're going to do a project is if it's 100% funded by a grant, then there's really no point in trying to collect SDCs based upon that cost. Now, my understanding is that the inclusion of the Nekus Park in the SDC methodology that we did, none of those intentions were applicable at that time. It was included at an appropriate rate of eligibility, and it was properly included, properly adopted, and it is proper to include that kind of facility, even, and I may be straying to different correspondence, but even if it was determined this is primarily a tourist facility, or if it was motivated by tourist concerns, it's still entirely appropriate to have that in an SDC cost basis. We do that all the time, and to the extent that in some of our clients, Lincoln City in particular, are interested in having a separate SDC layer to be charged to new lodging developments in addition to the normal residential SDC. I said a lot. I'm going to stop there and see, did I scratch you where you itch on that?
I think you answered it.
All right.
Any other questions?
No.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve resolution 2405 for the purpose of updating system development charges to reflect inflation-related increases.
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kirk,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Good to see you guys again.
Likewise. Okay, now we're into our proclamation section of our agenda, and we have several proclamations. Always nice to do. So first, we're going to start with Arbor Day. And Karen?
Me again.
Don't go too far.
All right. Cannon Beach has recently been designated for its 16th year as Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation in honor of its commitment to effective urban forest management. The city is one of more than 3,400 Tree City USAs. The Tree City USA program is sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and the National Association of State Foresters. National Arbor Day is April 26th this year, and Arbor Day activities, including the annual tree planting ceremony, will take place during the 12 Days of Earth festivities in Cannon Beach. The recommendation is to adopt the proclamation.
Ready?
I move to adopt proclamation 2403 for the purpose of proclaiming April 22, 2024 as Earth Day in the city of Cannon Beach.
Earth Day? It's.
Did I get that right?
Wrong one, Gary.
Sorry, scratch that. I move to adopt proclamation 2402
There you go.
for the purpose of proclaiming April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day in the city of Cannon Beach.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council President McCarthy?
Yes.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
Counselor Kerr?
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy?
Yes.
Mayor Knopf?
Yes. Okay, we're going to take turns reading these proclamations. Who would like to go first?
We just go down the line.
Okay, Brandon.
Let me make sure I'm on the right one.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to.
For the purpose of proclaiming April 26th, 2024 as Arbor Day in the city of Cannon Beach, proclamation 402. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Be it resolved that I,
Barb Knopf.
I'm speaking for Mayor Knopf, by virtue of the authority vested in her as mayor of the city of Cannon Beach in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day in the city of Cannon Beach. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Further, I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Passed by the Common Council of the City of Cannon Beach this second day of April, 2024 by the following roll call vote.
Thank you, Brandon. Nice job. Okay. Next, we have proclamation 2403 for the purpose of proclaiming April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day in the city of Cannon Beach.
And I would just like to take a moment to say, Mayor Knopf, thank you for your years of support to city staff with the administrative part of the Tree City USA application. All right, April 22nd, 2024 marks 54 years of Earth Day celebration. As part of the Earth Day celebration each year, the Parks and Community Services Committee coordinates the 12 Days of Earth Day event to educate the community and visitors about the unique, complex coastal environment and ecosystem of the area. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and recognize Earth Day and the work that the Parks and Community Services Committee and volunteers have done to continue the tradition of the 12 Days of Earth. Staff recommendation is for council to adopt the proclamation.
Did I try again?
Sure.
You're on, Gary.
Okay. I move to adopt proclamation 2403 for the purpose of proclaiming April 22, 2024 as Earth Day in the city of Cannon Beach.
Second?
Please.
Counselor Kerr?
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy?
Yes.
Council President McCarthy?
Yes.
Counselor Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Knopf?
Yes. Okay, Lisa.
For the purpose of proclaiming April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day in the city of Cannon Beach, proclamation number 2403. Whereas the first Earth Day was enacted in 1970 and engaged over 20 million Americans to advocate for a cleaner environment, and whereas April 22nd, 2024 marks 54 years of Earth Day. And whereas Earth Day now has become a worldwide event and has highlighted some of the most critical environmental issues on the world stage, and whereas all species play a unique role in the complex web of life and contribute to the ecosystem services on which all life on Earth depends, and hence protecting our species is crucial to the survival of this planet and its inhabitants. And Whereas the Parks and Community Services Committee has played an integral role to educate the community and visitors about the unique, complex coastal environment and ecosystem of the area by coordinating the celebration of Earth Day through a 12-day program of educational and community activities. Be it resolved that I,
Barb Knopf,
by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Cannon Beach in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day in the city of Cannon Beach. And I encourage all of its citizens, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the earth, promote the protection of our species. Passed by the Common Council of the city of Cannon Beach the second day of April 2024 by the following roll call vote.
thank you, Lisa. Okay, next we have a proclamation, 2404 for the purpose of honoring Terry and Judine Brooks. Bruce?
Yes,
You ready?
This is a proclamation honoring Terry and Jadine Brooks' commitment to art and more specifically live literary art in Cannon Beach. They help create and grow Get Lit at the Beach, a gathering for readers event since 2012, bringing many well-known and celebrated authors to Cannon Beach. They helped reorganize after COVID forced the event to be canceled 3 years in a row. Terry is a beloved and well-known fantasy writer for all ages and backgrounds. Analysis and information. Terry and Jadine are moving closer to family and out of Cannon Beach. A request was made to create a proclamation of their contribution to the community of Cannon Beach. Recommendation is to adopt the recommendation.
Would you two like to come up and
No.
at least move up to a seat so I can see your face?
Can I say,
You were like behind bars.
can I say something to the council?
Sure.
Even though we're moving out, we're not giving up. We're staying connected to this program.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on it.
I just want to say, hope we'll see all your faces at Get Lit this year, which is very close. It's about 10 days away. Get your tickets.
Okay, could we have a motion?
I move to adopt proclamation 2404 for the purpose of honoring Terry and Jadine Brooks.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, for the purpose of honoring Terry and Judine Brooks, proclamation number 2404. Whereas Terry and Judine Brooks have made a commitment to the arts in Cannon Beach, especially the literary arts. And whereas Terry and Judine Brooks helped create and grow the event Get Lit at the Beach, a gathering for readers created in 2012. This event brings many well-known and celebrated authors to Cannon Beach, as well as readers from all over the Pacific Northwest. Whereas Terry and Judine Brooks have contributed their time, expertise, and resources to encouraging a love of books among young adults, especially through the Shannara series and other books. Whereas Cannon Beach has been enhanced in other aspects of civic life by the involvement of Terry and Judine Brooks. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the city of Cannon Beach honors Terry and Judine Brooks for their long-standing service and dedication to the arts and culture of the city. Passed by the Common Council of the City of Cannon Beach the second day of April 2024 by the following roll call vote. So congratulations, thank you. Make sure you stick with us. Thank you.
Could I give some respectful congratulations to somebody else who deserves this recommendation too? This happened because former Mayor Jim, who
Jim?
happens by chance to be sitting back over there,
Jim.
We usually call him Mike.
whoever.
It's like all everybody.
Mike. This is what happens after you have heart surgery. called to get, at the time that this happened, when we first moved here, called Judine and I together with Val Ryan when she was alive and said, you know, this is a community that's very respectful of and honoring arts constantly, but we don't have a literary program of any kind. Don't you think we should have one? To which we all nodded, yes, we certainly do. And he says, great, go fix one up and let me know what you come up with.
That sounds like Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I think also we should give recognition to Tracy Abel as well.
Yes.
For her coordination of the event all these years.
Yeah, so thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mike. Anything else? Okay. So next we have proclamation 2405 for the purpose of designating the month of April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Jason?
Yes. So Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and impacts every community member. Every individual and community in Oregon has a right to eliminate sexual violence by working together to promote social change. Yeah, founded the Harbor's mission to provide advocacy, prevention, and support while promoting self-determination and hope for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. Through partnerships in the local area and across Oregon, the Harbor is committed to protecting survivors. Their goal is to break the cycle of violence through education, one-on-one support, practical assistance, and referral. I'll add that last year in Cannon Beach, we did have 2 sexual assaults. City's recommendation is that you adopt the proclamation.
And do we have a representative here from the Harbor?
I do not see one.
Okay.
I move to adopt proclamation 2405 for the purpose of designating the month of April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes,
yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, Gary, it's your turn.
Before the city of Cannon Beach for the purpose of designating the month of April 2024 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Proclamation number 2405. Whereas sexual assault affects Oregonians every day, whether as a victim or a survivor or as a family member, friend, partner, neighbor, employer, or co-worker of a survivor. And whereas Oregonians of all gender identities experience sexual violence, including an estimated 1 in 4 adult women who have been the victim of rape and nearly 1 in 5 men who have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. And whereas 1 in 10 Clatsop County middle and high school students report inappropriate sexual contact by an adult before they turn 18. And whereas certain populations in Oregon experience much higher rates of sexual violence due to systemic oppression and inequality. And whereas out of 1,000 sexual assaults, only 25 perpetrators will face any legal repercussions for the assault. And whereas sexual violence is preventable and all communities are strengthened by encouraging healthy, nonviolent interactions, relationships, and social norms. And whereas every individuals and communities in Oregon have a role to play to help eliminate sexual violence by working together to promote social change. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this Common Council of Cannon Beach does hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Clatsop County, and call upon all community members and local agencies to speak out against sexual violence, educate one another, sexual violence prevention, and support and believe survivors. Passed by the Common Council of the City of Cannon Beach, the 2nd day of April, 2024.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, next we have proclamation number 2406 for the purpose of designating the month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Jason?
Last but certainly not least, spring is a time of new beginnings. It is also time to renew our commitment to the protection of children in our community. Since 1983, a presidential proclamation has designated April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Observing Child Abuse Prevention Month allows us to raise awareness of the severity of this issue and to arm citizens with the tools to help prevent abuse from happening. Awareness of a problem creates intentional change. Hundreds of children in Clatsop County are exposed to violence, drug abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect. Chances are all of us know at least one child who has been the victim of child abuse and neglect. I don't know if Nikisha's here. She is the executive director for CASA.
Katrina's on.
Yeah. Michelle, okay.
Katrina, yep. Katrina, did you want to?
Wrong one. That one. There we go.
Hi.
Hi there. Thank you, Mayor Knopp and City Council. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the Clatsop Court Appointed Special Advocates. We really appreciate you helping our community stand up for abused and neglected children in this way.
Thank you. Good to kind of see you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move to adopt proclamation 2406 for the purpose of designating the month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kern.
Yes.
Counselor Rokelby.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
Ready, my turn, I guess.
Your turn. For the delegation.
We're so good at it. For the purpose of designating the month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, Proclamation 2406. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, nurturing environment, free from the dangers and harmful effects of child abuse and neglect. And whereas our children are our most valuable resources and will shape the future of Clatsop County, Oregon. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas child abuse prevention succeeds through partnerships among parents, child welfare agencies, mental and physical health care providers, schools, law enforcement agencies, faith-based organizations, businesses, and community members by fostering loving, supportive, and violence-free homes. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas, excuse me, whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families, now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of Cannon Beach does hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 to be National Child Abuse Prevention Month in the city of Cannon Beach, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families. Passed by the Common Council of the city of Cannon Beach, second day of April 2024 by the following roll call vote.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Okay, that's it for proclamations. Next, we're going to appointment of a city committee, board commission. We have one person that's interested in the Parks and Community Services. That's Mark Morgans. And I believe you're on Zoom.
Yep, he's on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Glad to see your name on this ballot.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm not sure if my camera's on or not. If you want it on, I can't tell.
It's been a while since we've seen you.
I'll have to hold on that.
I guess we'll have to just live with the memory.
There he is. You're not so lucky. So. But thank you for the opportunity to be able to join the meeting tonight over Zoom. Really appreciate your consideration for the opportunity for me to be able to dedicate time and services to the Parks and Community Service. You know, recently I've had a chance to look at some of the videos that are posted online of the meetings. Understandably, I see there's a lot of conversations about trees. And I see this as an opportunity, you know, as an OSU trained forester, now recently retired after 38 years in the tree business, if you will, and just a deep commitment to the community. Have demonstrated that in 25 years of residency, and other opportunities that I've had to be able to volunteer. So I please ask you to consider my participation with that. I think particularly this committee, what draws me towards it is I'm intrigued by the blending of both combining open spaces and the arts. You know, something that I've tried to do some things in the past by bringing some classical music to the wild and other events, and pretending like the summer concerts in the park. So if you allow me to participate on the committee, I'll do everything I can to support the open spaces, protecting the trees, and maybe see what I can do to help enhance the arts in town too. So thank you for the consideration.
Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is like sort of off the track, but is that a tree painted on your wall? Above the window?
No, it's a metal sculpture of a tree. Yeah, I see
It's
it.
a metal sculpture. Oh, yeah.
He did that just for the meeting.
You're promoting trees and art. Come on.
It's really nice.
Any other questions? Anybody ready?
I move to appoint Mark Horgans to the Parks and Community Services Committee beginning immediately.
Go ahead. Second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, vote call.
Counselor Kurt.
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Counselor President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Get
Thank
to
you.
work.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
You go ahead. Red.
Okay. Okay, next we have Midtown Restroom Addition and Remodel Project Award. Karen? Getting here.
All right. In February 2024, city staff publicly advertised this project for contractor quotes on the 2023-24 Midtown Restroom Addition and Remodel Project. After evaluating the two proposals received, the estimated project cost for the lowest responsive bidder is $447,522.78. The 2023-24 adopted budget allocated $250,000 to fund a building addition and the remodel of the existing Midtown restroom facilities. The difference of $197,522.78 could be made up in several different funding sources. The Tourism and Arts Commission has expressed their desire to fund this entire project from the current Tourism and Arts Fund, which would be ideal in this case. Should the council not agree with that approach, funding could be covered through the current general fund contingency. After publicly bidding this project 3 times between 2023 and 24 and revising the scope each time in the spirit of driving the cost down, only 2 responsive bidders were received. The apparent low responsive bidder was James E. John Construction Company, LLC from Vancouver, Washington, with a bid amount of $447,000, $522.78. This bid is almost $90,000 lower than the previous public bid process, and our efforts to modify the scope to reduce cost. Further delays will challenge the savings with the ongoing increase in material costs and labor. City staff recommends utilizing the TAF funds as suggested by the TAC for this public improvement project that is primarily used by our visiting tourists. Staff requests council provide direction on the funding source.
Questions for Karen?
What did this look like with the Tourism and Arts Commission? We discussed this at their last meeting and vote on it, or what was the
It wasn't just.
process look like where
It wasn't discussed in their latest meeting, which was just the week before last, I believe, but in, before they adjourned last year, in their last meeting, they had made the request that we follow through with this when we bid it out the third time. They had not met since then until a couple weeks ago, and we hadn't done our bid opening. So it was inappropriate for us to tell them anything at that point because we hadn't received our bids yet. So
they specifically discussed this project?
absolutely.
Thank you. I think this is the kind of project that
We've been.
is a good use of those tourism restricted funds, in this case, the Tourism and Arts Fund. I would like to see some kind of arts component to this, if there's any way.
Bench that is currently sitting out front, and I don't see a reason why additional art couldn't be considered if the desire was there to do so.
Well, as part of the conversation we're starting to have as a council, but I think keeping as much of the art component in there as possible is important.
I will mention also that the parent low bidders subcontractor disclosure form identified all local contract help that would be working on this project, with the exception of one that is based out of Woodlawn, Oregon. And it's just because of the actual component that they would be working on that there is no local contractor. Other than that, they're all local. Great plumbers, electricians, everybody.
Karen, how soon would they be able to break ground on the project?
In our bid packet, we put on a construction start of October 1st. As I had talked to council before, the window for us to do this based on its location is really narrow. That's one of the things that discourage contractors from coming forward to bid because of the timing. And they would have to have the majority of the project complete by January 13th or January 31st. But the intent here, if you give me the nod, especially in light of what happened in Baltimore with the bridge, we are already hearing signs that we're going to go through another lead time delay with materials. So as soon as you gave me the nod, they would have the approval to pull the trigger on the materials we know we're going to need so that they could start October 1st.
Thank you.
So we can go through a summer farmer's market. Because the most popular question of the farmer's market is, where's the bathroom?
Exactly. So that we get beyond the summer, and October 1st is when they would start. And you gave me the approval to let them fence off that area so that they could stage materials and that the public is safe from trying to walk through there or get hurt or whatever. So that was, that helped get some more bidders to the table for consideration. So that would be the case. Is October 1, you'd see that area fenced in and secured, and the ball would start rolling.
I move to approve the contract award to James E. John Construction for the Midtown Restrooms addition and remodel, contingent on a adopted budget resolution at the April 9 council meeting.
A second?
Okay, any further discussion?
Just to make sure that we're clear on providing direction to staff about the funding source.
Do we want that to be in the motion?
You guys can have
Yeah.
consensus and that, because that budget, that report has to come back to the next meeting anyways, but you can add it to the motion. But we would need to know where the funds are coming from to do the budget amendment.
Okay, so why don't we have had a first and a second, so let's have discussion about that the funding source. Is everybody okay with using TAC funds?
Absolutely.
You're talking about using just the $197,000 difference? Is that what you're talking about? Or using the whole 445?
The entire amount.
445,000. 447,000. And how much do we have now in the,
In the reserve, it was 1.2 million.
is that about right?
I think so.
Yeah.
As a quick reminder, we're gonna have TAC here next week for a joint meeting to
Oh,
discuss
okay.
this as well, so
Work.
timing is pretty good.
So do we want to revise motion?
I could tack on to the end of my motion that
Tack on.
using Tourism and Arts Fund dollars to fund the project.
And the person that seconded, okay with that addition?
I am indeed, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, any further, is that enough direction for staff? Karen, is that enough direction? That's perfect. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Nice to have those steps. Okay, next we have the tree focus group update with design review and parks. And anyone that would like to help present this, come on up.
I'm doing an intro.
You're doing the intro. Jen.
While we're getting set up, Madam Mayor, I want to tell you that as awesome as this setting is on Zoom, it's nowhere close to what it is in person.
Put on a good show, huh?
Better than TV.
Prime time.
Not saying much anymore.
Okay, so Lisa is gonna start off.
I'm pleased to be introducing the work done by the Tree Focus Group to this joint group of commissions and the council. It was based on the realization that more and more significant trees are being lost in Cannon Beach due to the construction of buildings and other projects on the very few available vacant lots, as well as the remodel of older homes being replaced by larger homes. The group has put in literally hours of work, has met 3 to 4 times a month at least for the past many months. And not only internally, but with the following city staff. We met, I think it was 2 times with Trevor and Karen of Public Works, so it would be compatible with their projects and plans. We met with Robert and Steve of Planning at least twice, so it would be implementable and understandable to the public. We met with Chief Jason and Code Enforcement Officer Daniel, so it would be enforceable by our code enforcement officer. We met with the city arborist, Jeff Gearhart, to get it right from an expert's perspective. We met on email with Bill Kabisman several times, our land use attorney, to make sure we were on the up and up. The 5-member focus group was made up of members of the Planning Commission, Parks, and the council, and a citizen. Les Sinclair was our secretary, wordsmith, and organizer. Mike was our numbers guy and also our wordsmith. Stacy was our ballast. If it didn't pass the Stacy test for reasonableness, go. And Jan Siebert-Warman was our conscience and our nitpicker.
Your soul.
Yes. At the last meeting, some of you expressed concerns about certain provisions of this tree ordinance, and we have tried to address those concerns, as you can see when you read through the new iteration. I'm really pleased with the work we've accomplished, and will now turn it over to Les to present the ordinance in its latest presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Court. Mayor, council, staff, we were here about a month ago, I think, and presented an iteration of the work we've been doing and got some really good feedback. And I don't intend to go back through that again, but I'd like to update you on some of the feedback we got and what we've done. And then, of course, open it up to any kind of questions. Our goal tonight is to get your approval to move forward with the public hearings, the public awareness part of this. So one thing in your packet, you've seen our attachments A, B, and C. A is the revised code, and there have been some revisions made to that language, and I'll try to hit the high points of that. There's also attachment B, which is very much of a draft. I think we're calling it a replacement or general tree list, but the intent is that with input from our city arborist, that we would have a list of trees that are deemed desirable for replacement trees. That's what that will be. It's not yet ready to present. And then finally, there's an attachment C, which is not something that you'd seen before, but it was frankly my attempt to try to boil everything down into a picture that I thought might be easier to understand when we start talking about less than 6-inch DBH is not really a tree. The 6-inch up to certain points is a tree, and then at 24 inches for a conifer, for 18 inches for a deciduous tree, that we want to call that a significant tree. And those significant trees are what we really have focused on. But we still have language that's changed even for the smaller trees. We're still trying to protect every bit of canopy we can. Couple of things that I would like to mention, and thank you, Elisa, for going through a lot of the process. Some changes that have been addressed, and I hope you've been able to take a look at it, is that ADUs now have a specific path to follow with the goal of not prohibiting housing, but still trying to accomplish what we set out to do, which is protect the significant trees that we have. And so I think that you'll find that satisfactory. One of the changes that was there last time, and I don't think it really got discussed that much, but we are now asking for the city arborist to have involvement in every development project, and actually get a sign off on on the tree removal or the plans before a building permit is even granted. There was a lot of concern about the fines associated with the unpermitted removal of trees, and so we've gone back and rethought about it. You'll see that the fine has been significantly reduced from what was in the last version for that group of trees, from 6-inch DBH up to the significant limit. But we've chosen to keep the fairly significant fines for an again, it's only for unpermitted removal of a significant tree. We've chosen to keep that at what we think is a significant level. And frankly, it's supported, I think, by what other jurisdictions feel like the value of trees are. I don't think we're out of line for that. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was simply that we're going to talk a little bit, I think, probably about the tree fund that we're asking to be created and that would be used by the city to further the maintenance and the enhancement of the canopy of Cannon Beach. In addition to the fines associated with the unpermitted trees, there's also a beefed up requirement to replace the trees that are legally removed associated with building. And in those cases where there's not sufficient room on a given lot to replace the trees, we're actually asking for financial compensation to be paid into the city tree fund that would further allow us to plant trees anywhere within the city limits. So I don't know that we really talked about the different sources of funding that might go into that tree fund. We hope there are not any penalties actually that ever occur, but there still probably are some opportunities for monies to flow in that could be used to support our work. So those are the kind of the four things that I thought specifically I should bring out. Are there any others in our focus group that wanted to bring anything else? So I guess at that point, I would open it up to any questions that you might have for us.
So the revisions that you made from the last time you visited, staff has weighed in on those and
Absolutely.
Bill and.
Yep.
Every.
We've met, yeah, we've met with the community development folks specifically, and then had some really good dialogue with the city arborist as well, since we last got together.
Okay. Other questions?
Well, I feel more comfortable with the pine reduction in some of the smaller trees. So I feel a lot more comfortable with that than just an overall $20,000 fine.
Well, and again, that only kicks in if a tree gets removed, illegally, basically without a valid permit.
And I believe we took out the viewed from the street, didn't we?
Well, we discussed it at length, the marking of the trees, and we recognized, Nancy, your point that sometimes trees aren't visible from the street, and we really didn't we did take off the view visible from the street and simply said, look, it just needs to be marked. Right now, our expectation is that any tree that needs to be removed will have some inspection by our city arborist, so he would have the ability to see what's being proposed, even if the neighbors don't in that unique situation. Ideally, we'd like this to be totally transparent and everyone who lives in the neighborhood would understand what changes are being proposed.
So say, I have a lot of trees in my backyard. A lot of them are fairly small trees. But say I wanted to get my backyard thinned out so that some of the trees would have a chance to actually grow into real trees. Would I have to go then to the city, get a permit, have an arborist, the city arborist come in and take a look at all those trees?
One of you help me out here, but so a tree, anything that's 6 inches or less, of course, isn't really a tree if you've got a lot of thin stuff. And those do not require any kind of permit. But anything over that, I'm pretty sure that the way we see it right now is that it does need to be a permit application, and that our city arborist would in fact be able to weigh in on the appropriateness of what you want to do.
And advise you on the best way to do it too. And advise you on the best and healthiest way to do it.
And who pays for that? Would be the person requesting the arborist or?
Yeah. That is who pays for it. That's the way it is. That's the way it is in any city that has a tree ordinance. I can just speak from personal experience, paying a lot of money because we had to have trees taken out, big trees, because they had a disease. And we still had to pay for an arborist to come in, and we had to pay to have the trees removed and everything else, but.
And is that spelled out in the ordinance? I don't remember seeing that.
I honestly don't think it's quite as clearly spelled out as that. But it's a very, very valid point.
Maybe we should.
We do need to
put in.
We need to, yeah.
Paid for by the applicant.
So is attachment C part of the ordinance, the table that you made?
It wasn't my intention that it be part of the ordinance unless you think it should be part of the ordinance. What I wanted to do was try to more clearly differentiate between the different kinds of trees and maybe make our document a little more understandable?
Because it sounds like what the question Nancy's asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, you were talking about pruning?
No, removing.
Okay, okay.
Pruning is probably advisable too, but removing might have to be done sometimes.
Pruning's always the first step, Nancy.
One of the things that we have discussed and has not been done is, there is the actual application form that's part of the tree removal permit needs to be updated to be consistent with what we're now. And I think probably, although we need to make sure it's in here clear, that's probably where that, who pays for it would be most appropriate as well
On the application.
on the application. But it's a good catch.
I appreciate some of the changes and at least you're putting a path out there for ADUs. I still think that we may be missing an opportunity. And missing an opportunity to make these requirements for single family homes, but create more exceptions that might actually incentivize construction of ADUs and multifamily. So, I still have this concern that this ordinance will only make solving our housing issues harder. So, I hate to put our staff on the spot here, but Steve, could you weigh in at all? Do you have any concerns that sure, or can you relieve my concerns that?
No, I can. So I think the biggest things that I would say from a staff perspective, as I worked with the group, is that probably the biggest sections that are being changed are the permit issuance criteria, which is section 1770-020 B1 A through D and B2. It's kind of a graduated scale as to what a person needs to do, whether it's an ADU or a home. And it talks about what types of things you need to do to kind of protect the trees in there as part of that construction process. So that's something Plan Commission, the public and council will eventually be considering when it's time for a review of the item. The civil fine and enforcement, that there obviously the fines have come down a little bit, but if you have a property that's $1 million and you remove a tree illegally, as was said, you're looking at a $50,000 fine. So just so everyone knows those types of things.
Significant.
Significant,
Right.
that's correct. 500,000 would be 25,000. Other aspects of it are finance is going to have to create a new tree fund for both the civil fines, which I guess we'd have to talk to the attorney about how that happens, but the civil fines as well as the tree replacement. So these are all things that haven't been done yet, but would need to be created in order to implement the ordinance as it is drafted and being considered.
I read an article on housing in New York Times just this last week. That's like just so right on to what we're talking about here. And it did mention that states are passing laws that strip cities' power to say no to housing. So I guess my question would be, and maybe it's a question more for Bill than for you, but are we getting into that territory that we're creating barriers to housing that might have implications with current or proposed state requirements that we don't discourage construction of housing?
All I can say on that is obviously things are becoming less restrictive in terms of housing and what you can and can't do. So I don't know the answer to that, and that would definitely be a turning question.
Clearly, we're getting more restrictive.
That's correct.
Gary, I'm sorry. You want to go ahead? We met about a week ago and we talked about the first thing we're gonna do is a public benefits clause. And I know we're all scheduled to meet for 4 hours, the people in this focus group coming up quickly. That we debated putting something like that into the tree code, but the reality is it's a bigger issue than trees, as you know, it's FARs, it's parking, and the other things. So for us to take a piece of it and address it in the tree code, it just didn't make sense. With the understanding that we are going to get to that public benefits thing right away because you all let the fire under us, right? I would expect within a month you'll see that. And in that tree code, or in that public benefits package, I can see trees being put in as with some bootstrapping, giving you a fast track to get around trees for affordable housing. I mean, we've been saying that it will happen. It's just that we can't do it as part of the trees because it's a bigger issue. And we'd like to tackle it as part of the housing issue, the public benefit clause that's going to come to you in a month.
And no tree ordinance that I have read from any jurisdiction addresses that topic in the tree ordinance. It's addressed elsewhere in your code as an exception or as a conditional use or as a variance or something like that. But it's not, it can't be in the actual tree code. And I also think you're drawing a false equivalence. I don't think that providing housing means you have to take down trees, as many trees as, you know, as you want. I think there is definitely ways to build housing and a path to building affordable housing without also destroying your natural environment. I just don't agree with that at all, but that has nothing to do with this. That's just a different philosophical take on housing. What I'm talking about here is the tree ordinance itself. You can't put public benefits in your tree ordinance. That has to come as a separate thing that you do with your code rewrite.
And my guess is you will see a provision before we go to Papa, right? Before we go to all this notice stuff, you will know and you will get an opportunity, if you don't like it, to tell us at that point. The adjustment will be in that language. It won't be in the tree code, but I know I'm with Lisa. You can do both here. And we can do it without slowing down the type of housing we need. In fact, we can do it while speeding it up. If you think of when we're talking about floor area ratios, we were thinking of sinks, reducing those to be able to give the buyer an incentive by giving him more FAR to put in an ADU. This is the same thing. You've just given them the carrot. And once they go in with affordable housing, this is one of the things you can offer up to get them to follow through.
Times affordable housing. I'm not sure about that term, but
we
use duplexes.
Yeah.
That would be my concern.
For sure.
Housing kind of has a different connotation for a lot of people.
I have a feeling you'll see a lot of it, and there'll be some strict metrics on what all of it means, but it'll go all the way down to ADUs.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in code or where those kind of give backs or considerations or incentivizing takes place.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's just my big concern is that we can't go backwards on housing.
And we agree.
Yeah, Gary, I'm not a very good strategic thinker. I'm more of a tactical kind of thinker. So I know how nuts and bolts go together, but what that really means is hard for me but I understand that we may be making the road to affordable housing more complicated because we've introduced really more considerations that have to be made for the trees that are on the property in question. But I don't think they necessarily prohibit anything. We're asking for everybody that wants to develop something, whether it's a primary residence or an ADU, to think about, is there any way to save the trees? And there's nothing in our current code that asks that or even incents that. We just have to depend on the good nature of people. folks that came in just earlier that wanted to save the significant tree, and you all appreciated that, and so did we. You know, that's what we're asking for. But at the end of the day, if they can't build an ADU because of a huge, nice tree in the only place it can go, then that tree it's allowed to cut the tree down. We're not stopping anything like that. We're just asking for more consideration.
It is putting more regulation and permitting.
Well, that's one way to look at it, but it doesn't have to go to the, it doesn't have to stretch out. We're simply asking them to address each of those steps, that we asked for. And are there any options to cutting it down? That's all we were really trying to get to, I think. So maybe it will be a consideration for ADUs or affordable housing or whatever it is, but that wasn't our intent.
Duplex, and they may get limited to 1,000 square foot footprint.
Yeah,
maybe that makes that less likely. So
Well,
I just want to make sure
That's
that
1,000 square feet, the 1,000 square foot, because if it's 2 stories, that's a 2,000 square foot limitation, which is not tiny by any means.
for a duplex.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, and that's a good point. Yeah.
I have one other question. I think I've expressed my concerns that we need to make sure we're not going the wrong direction on housing.
And
I'm sure we're
I
going to be
think we
looking at
all
this
share
through the
that
process.
concern.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're taking care of both trees and people.
And, again, I appreciate your efforts on, the replanting and the tree fund, and I support all these things. I'm not here supporting cutting down trees by any means.
We know.
That's not who I am. I did have a question about the significant deciduous trees, and wondered what the intention was there. It seems like we're kind of talking about probably mostly alder trees, where we're putting alder trees as kind of a big obstruction to development.
Well, certainly alders are a common deciduous tree, but there's also maples that are native.
Big leaf.
There are some,
Elm, they're elm here.
so let me tell you where that came from, because I'm the one who's responsible for it probably. And
Ask him the right guy.
there was I wanted to, in order to determine what was significant, what we really wanted was to tie it back to the canopy contribution. It wasn't the number of tree trunks on a given lot. It was how much canopy is there and how can we preserve it. There was a fairly detailed study that was done out of Portland, where they looked at tree canopy based on the size of the trunk. And what happens is deciduous trees have a very different ratio of radius of canopy to trunk size. They tend to be bigger than conifers are, and that's kind of the way it was. So there really wasn't any consideration given to, do we want to preserve alders specifically? We were simply trying to honor the data that we had available. And what happens is if you've got the 4 trees that we currently ask for on a lot, and they meet these significant criteria, then you've got about 65% canopy coverage on a 5,000 foot lot. I mean, that's frankly where it came from. Those numbers could be something different, but it felt like those sizes of trees felt to me that they were big enough to qualify as significant. We want to keep trees of that size. But there was really no differentiation between the value of an alder and the value of a hemlock or anything like that.
There was another data point too. There was a forest that's just out here outside of Tillamook, research forest that had been monitored from the years 1949 to 1985. And we took a picture of that forest in 1985. It was about 80 years old at that point since the last clear cut. And it just so happened that the averages in the forest for conifers was 25 inches. We brought it down one. The average for deciduous trees was 18 right on. So what we were doing is also protecting the integrity of the forest. I think those alders are important second growth trees. I don't think they're unimportant. They don't live as long, but they are very important.
Yeah, I mean, they're important because they die pretty young and they're nitrogen producers.
Yeah.
That's their value. And less so for a canopy, in my opinion, but that's why I had the question. And I know big leaf maples are something that's more long-lived, but I don't really know of any big leaf maples here. So it seems like mainly, I mean, I know there are some, but it seems like it's really talking about the alder in that case.
Well, I don't think that I can talk in that granularity, but I suspect that's probably one of those conversations that would be very useful to have on a case by case basis when you're looking at a tree and, what a significant alder probably is near the end of its life, I would suspect.
Yeah.
Maybe that does make you want to treat it differently, but we didn't deal with that in our
We leave that to the arborist,
code.
to make that decision.
I don't know, Steve, did you have any follow-up to?
No, the only other thing to mention was just, there was some mention of the process. Process is similar to like the wetlands and the code reorg, a lot of the code audit stuff. This is something that we'll have to provide notice to the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Then it will go to Plan Commission where there will be a hearing, and they will make a recommendation to council, and then council will have a hearing on this matter before, there would be, you guys would consider it for action.
So we're asking the council at this meeting to let us move forward with the next step. It's going to come back to council eventually, but
with a public hearing.
Right, but just to move forward with the next step that we need to do to get this going. Which would be to have Steve send it to the Department of Department of State Lands and Conservation and issue, the public notice requirement.
Did you want to say something?
Hi,
Young man.
Johnson, 4008 South Hemlock. I just wanted to say something about trees that I don't think is being addressed tonight. And that is the shore pines, which Don and I planted at my place, have a short living span. Basically about 50 years old. And at my place, all of the lower limbs have no foliage on them. You have to go up 30 feet before there's any needles there. And so I want people to keep in mind that trees are different. The ages of trees are different. And the fact that here we are in a city, but we are in a city that was a forest. And we're addressing trees that are appropriate for an urban environment versus what are natives. And so we are constantly fighting with the two realities of the landscape. And so I want all of you to think about the lifespan and the height and the growth of trees, and they are all different. And so I think we're constantly fighting with, the folks that are building the new houses at the S curves are cutting down Douglas fir that will grow to, over 100 feet. And they're slicing it up in a way that is so unacceptable in terms of horticultural beauty. I can't believe that they got by with this, but they did. So anyways, I'm also at this point where some 20 years ago, there were two alder trees that were rogue alder trees that came up. I cut one of them down 20 years ago. I talked to Trevor. I said, well, you know, the second one, which is also now, what, 30 feet? I said, well, you know, it's on the right of way. It's not doing me any good. Well, you know, we don't want to cut down a viable tree. Well, okay, how do you define that viable tree? Because it's shading out my garden. So, you know, can the city cut that down? It's on the right of way. I don't know. Anyways, I just want you to consider every tree out there and what their growth habit is and how it should be used in the city. Obviously, Shirley Park areas to the east of downtown are forested areas, and they are an appropriate tree to grow to however old they can be, and that should happen. But keep in mind, we're really competing with what a tree should be in an urban environment versus what's in a forest. And just because I'm here, I want you to know that the 60 some acres to the east of 101 that the city owns and should be developing, I think that's where the police station should be. There is a 800, maybe 1,000-year-old stump up there. If that property gets developed, that trunk should be preserved because it represents what this area was 1,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago. And I'm quite sure that if developers come into the city, they're going to pull that stump out of there. But I think it should be a statement to the development of that area. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to address one of the things that was just brought up, and that is that I think this tree code is written for an urban forest, not for a forest. I think that's what we're trying to address is an urban environment. And no one at this table, or I don't know about the whole room, has the expertise on a tree by tree basis. Maybe you do, because was your business, you know, but that's why we have so much involvement with the arborist, the city arborist, because a lot of the times we can't make the determination on an individual tree. Is this tree, you know, viable? Is it going to live 5 years? Is it going to live? We just don't have. So that's why we have a pretty great dependence in the ordinance on the expertise of a city arborist.
Well, when I was on the design review board, I can't tell you how many landscape projects came before us, and they were introducing hybrid Japanese maples. And those hybrids, none of them do well down here. They can't tolerate they get mildew. They can't tolerate the salt air. And so, you know, that problem has continued forever. But you know, I also feel like we really need to expand who's talking about trees, who are the arborists down here, because I really feel like we need to have outside people coming down and evaluating. We've had too many, we've had a long time of the same people. And so I think a new view of those projects should be addressed.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I would feel most comfortable with this if we had a housing advocate that could weigh in to address concerns that if we're putting up barriers to housing, but more so if there are opportunities out here in what we're doing to actually create some incentives, to create some exceptions that would actually incentivize housing going in.
You don't do that in a tree ordinance. I've never seen that done in any tree ordinance anywhere. And I've read a whole lot of them, and we all have. That's not the place to do it. You do that when you address housing itself. And if you're going to have a tree,
Don't conflict somehow.
not, they don't have to. If you have a desire to protect your trees, but you have, except there's nothing in this ordinance that stops someone from building an ADU or a duplex. There's nothing in this tree ordinance that stops that. It just asks you to consider.
Make it less likely in most.
Not necessarily, you just have to go through a process. I mean, I would never sign on,
Makes it
well,
less likely.
I would never,
In
you have to have a process, Gary, otherwise trees are going to be cut down willy-nilly. I think it's important that this ordinance goes through before we have the discussion on housing. I think that's paramount because the housing discussion will allow different exceptions as public benefits type things.
I think that's a mistake.
Well, I've never,
To do the tree ordinance outside of its impact on housing.
oh, I don't. I think that you either want to protect trees or you don't, because there's not going to be anything in here that's going to stop people from doing housing.
Is there any
If you think,
possibility that when we have our public hearings on this ordinance, we could have some housing people involved in reviewing the ordinance, just to give their opinion about whether or not this would restrict housing?
Be very helpful.
I think
yeah,
that's probably where,
Better that.
Oh, I would absolutely feel better, but again, it's not just restricting or putting barriers up to housing. There may be some ways in this that we can actually incentivize ADUs and duplexes.
first of all, those are not going to solve our housing problem. That's number one, but I don't want to go there.
There's not one solution.
Yeah, I don't want to go there with you right now. What I'm saying is this is a tree ordinance. This is not a housing ordinance. You have to, every city that cares about its trees you made the motion for Arbor Day.
I
mean,
about trees.
No, I just don't understand how you can't see that housing, there are going to be ways to do housing. In other words, when we do the housing projects, trees will still have to be taken into consideration. Do you want no consideration for trees for housing? Is that, I'm not sure what you are saying.
I like a lot of this for single family homes. I think it makes sense, but it also makes ADUs and multifamily homes less likely.
I don't think so. I absolutely think that's wrong. I think that we're going to be in the housing discussion.
I'd love to hear a housing advocate alleviate those concerns.
I've actually talked to Alyssa about that, about whether that's the first thing I asked her after our first housing meeting that we had up in Seaside. I went up to her after the meeting and I said, well, are you advocating for, more trees to be cut down and wetlands to be filled in to make for housing? She said, absolutely not. So that's what she said.
But I mean, our consultants pretty much tell us that increasing density infill is one of the critical tools to providing housing. So it's all a balance.
That's it. Yeah. And this is a tiny little town. This is not a city.
So we definitely will get some housing perspective on the tree ordinance.
I think,
Yes.
When we have a public hearing.
Thank you, guys. I'm not a forester. I don't want to cut down trees. I've been an environmentalist my entire life. find myself in a different position here, you know, on city council where we're actually also trying to balance a housing crisis.
We need both trees and houses. We can do it.
So is there any consensus on moving forward to public hearings and sending this to DLCD?
Well, I think as long as we have the housing perspective. And
The public hearing?
I'm okay with that.
That would.
Yeah, I'm excited as you had mentioned, moving forward.
Okay.
Nancy?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone that was involved. I do know you guys had lots of meetings and we appreciate your volunteer focus group. And together, I think we're gonna get a solution for people and trees.
We are.
Community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. One more little topic.
All right, wait. Can I go home now?
I don't want to look at this.
Okay, you ready to?
I'm ready. I got the right. I gotta work. Okay, this item is essentially about considerations that we have for costs of either not anticipated and therefore not budgeted for, or numbers that we need to determine now that we're at the point of going out for a bond. And we are going to have a discussion about the bond next week on the 9th. Be having a bond resolution in front of you, and if you decide to pass it, we'll be moving forward with those. But the numbers that I just passed out to you were not on the original report that I gave you. And that was because when I started reviewing this on its own, it lacked the context of saying this is how much money we're committing to with when you go ahead and you just consider whether or not to add these other items. So just to kind of walk through. Canby Beach Elementary, the budget that was last approved was $11,964,000. And the last estimate we have is $12,340,000. And the difference there is $375,000. How do we do that? City Hall. The last budget was $15,906,000. Last estimate was $15,295,000. So actually, we are under $610,000 for City Hall project. The police station, the last budget was $9,208,000. Last estimate was $10,241,000. And that means that particular project is, at this point, is over by $1 million. When you look at the total of the projects, if you add this row, this goes the opposite way. 37 million. Let's see, are you goofing on me here, buddy? There it is, 37 million, yes, okay, for the total. The last estimate we had was 37,877,000. It's very helpful. 37,87, and then so that means we are over on the totality of the projects by $797,000. In the City Hall and Police Station alone, the last estimate, the total of the two was, the last budget was 25,130,000. And the next, last estimate was $25,537,000. That's a difference of $406,000. The reason that that number is less than what you see, the $1 million here, is how can this only be 406 when you add the two? Is remember that we are $610,000 under on City Hall. And then the difference in the cost between City Hall, and this is, okay, this should be Police Department minus City Hall, because this is the Police Department, how much we're over. This is how much we are under on the other project, the City Hall project, which means the net between the two is $425,070. So that gives you a reference point of where we are. When you look at where we are in a project, we're just now entering the contract drawing phase of the project. That's where we get down to really nitty gritty as far as what costs are going to be. There's some decisions will have to be made as we move through to get to budget. But right now, again, when we have one project that's set that far under, it can help the other projects if you're looking at it in the totality. The considerations, I'll leave that up there. The relocation is one item is the relocation of the Connex boxes. And this is for the police station. Yes, sorry.
You've got 1,000,000 at 32, and then down below you have 35, which is the step number.
It's 32. I found the mistake up there and we changed it to 2, but it should be 1,032,000. Thank you for catching it.
Okay, sorry.
We have a project, we have an item that is $100,000 that was not anticipated when we started because we weren't anticipating doing any work up at the cache sites. But the cache site, even though it looks relatively flat, it's not. And the location of the Connex boxes, they are going to be, the grade will change between 2 and, is it 7 feet or 12? I think it's 12 feet.
No, it's 2 or 6.
Two to 6 feet is what has to be changed in that location in order to get the site to be working. You know, we put Connex boxes back. But there's a couple of options that we're looking at. We anticipate that they'll be in the vicinity of $100,000. And that is, there's a place that's further up that has been cleared before and actually has a rock base. And it would be relatively easy to clear that, make it level, and then move the Connex boxes there. So we only have to move them once during construction.
Is that included? Is that part of the 1,032,000? That's the separate money.
These are separate dollars that are required. But we're at the point that the relocation, there's no way around it. Because otherwise, if we're not going to spend the money to move the Connex boxes, we're going to be installing retaining walls, and they're very expensive. So the less expensive way to go is to try to relocate those one time, and that's $100,000. And we have to, unless we're going to have these differences between 4 and 6 feet, then we have to do something about the Connex boxes. So the $100,000 is in addition. Covered parking.
Are all the other items here, none of them are part of the estimate?
Correct. They're what we call below the line. So we either have to eliminate them or fund them somehow. But the Connex boxes have to be done just to get the grade to work for everything else that's going on the site.
But I still don't understand why we're $1 million for budget on the police department, have I missed something? Or did you explain that at some point and I missed it or
Primarily site work.
did we?
Is there anything else that we can recall as far as being on what the difference is?
I don't remember off the top of my head, no.
But it was, a lot of it is the site work. There's places that have got, where it looks nice and flat. There's a road goes there. Well, that road might have a 10-foot drop on it, which is going to be too steep for certain vehicles to be able to work in that area. So we are at that point. Like I said, yeah, go ahead.
And what about the 375,764 on the school? What is that? What is that attributable to?
That is after we've taken out certain items, like for example, the material for the kitchen, the separating wall. That's how far we've been able to get it down by doing a term that is a misnomer. It's called value engineering, but you don't really add value. You start taking away costs as you go. Now that you start to identify costs.
I mean, no, we're 375 more. That's what I'm for. Yeah, I don't understand how.
That happened. So that initial budget was back in, I want to say, March of 20, no, it's probably a year earlier than that. It's more than a year old is when that initial budget came to you. So there were some scope changes, and I know one of them was Beaver Street work that had to be done for the water line that was out front.
Right.
There's probably some other scope changes in there as well that came up.
So we've had.
But that 375 is after all of the reductions that we had discussed, the concrete paneling. Okay.
The landscaping changes.
Landscaping.
Yeah, but there, when we get to Cannon Beach Elementary, there is the potential for an offset because we recognize the time it took to do COE for or community outreach events 4 through 7. And we have a cost just for the design, not for what the costs of the prices went up during that time, but just for the real cost for the design, which can offset some of that. So that was a recognized additional cost on the project. But the covered parking for the vehicles, that is a $200,000 item. And there is a garage that was built for emergency management that the police department would like to use. It's in that area that is not as flat as what we would like it to be. It needs to be relocated. It needs to be taken down. It can be rebuilt. We're also talking to housing movers, house movers, to see if they can pick it up and move it to a location on the site.
On which side are we talking about? Are we talking about the police department?
Police department, so.
This is over and above the $1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. But again, there's an offset of 600,000 on the side of the city hall. So, pardon?
I said, now I'm totally confused. First, we're talking city hall, then we're talking about school, now we're talking about police department.
We're talking about the police department project, but when we're talking about the dollars, I'm saying that there is an offset when we're looking at what the totality of the cost of the projects are. So potentially you've got a lower cost. There's two projects, together, police station and city hall, and city hall is under budget.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is under budget, but it's not now. But when you're talking about the garage, you're talking about the police department.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's not part of that, Nancy. That this is separate.
I understand that.
Right.
I just want to know which site we were talking about. We kept jumping around different sites.
Right, and so when we're talking about is on the relocation of the Connex boxes, that's a potential cost that could be absorbed, but that would result in a reduction of $100,000 someplace else. Funding by the general fund or increase the bond funds by $100,000 to cover that particular project cost. Looking at the covered parking, we can not include covered parking, do project reductions, funding by the general fund and or additional bond funds. I'm using the general fund because we happen to have in our budget now, we put $900,000 to do City Hall and the police station with the idea that the general fund would be paid back by the bonds. And so potentially there's $900,000 that's going to be coming back to the general fund. We may choose to use some of those funds for some of these items or not, but that is a potential funding source. Or we say that we want to go ahead and we want to cover that cost, and then could cover it, you know, by using bond funds. In my mind, the advantage of using bond funds is that if we were to take away, like in the case of the covered parking, that's $200,000 that today's money, today's people here that live here would be funding that and saying, okay, we'll pay for that. If it goes into the bond, everybody pays for it 1/30 for over 30 years. And so anybody comes, you sell your house in 5 years, somebody else is going to pay for it for 25 years. In theory, it's a more fair way to attribute cost. And then the demo on the rebuilding the garage, that looks like it's going to be a minimum of $60,000, or well, probably $40,000 if we knock it down and just cart it away. And it might be under $100,000 if we can move the building. But those are all things that we're looking at now. And that's why I know that we are continuing to try to refine and refine. So I'm not terribly concerned with some of these costs that you're looking at.
So general fund expenditures would be next fiscal year.
The one we're about to approve?
Yes, it would be next year. It would be next year.
In the process.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the substance of this. I'm just sort of talking about process.
Sure.
This is the first time we've seen this. And I have so many questions about like where exactly, in other words, I can ask you here.
Sure.
I'm not going to remember what you told me because there's so many things involved. For me, I need to see it laid out on a document.
Yes.
This is why there is a 375,764 over budget is attributable to these factors and have them laid out. Same thing for PD,
Right.
laid out. Then for City Hall, why is it 610 less? Unless we can, at least for me, I don't know if everybody else needs this, but I sure need it in order to understand what all these figures mean and where they're coming from and why I think it's my responsibility to know them.
It is, and I agree. And that would be, what's happening is a timing issue. We're at the point that we need, we're at the end of expending our $900,000. And so it looks like we are going to do a budget amendment to increase the amount that's going over to that account to be repaid through a reimbursement resolution, which was already in place. The phase that we just completed is design development. And you will get a presentation on design development, which will go ahead and give all of that information, same thing as it did when we did with schematic. What's happening is that we're trying to get the bond issue schedule, which potentially is taking the bond resolution at the next meeting, and that can be held off. But the bond resolution and design development they're out of order. And so you will get all of that information. You have had the information from the budget for, quite a while. The latest estimate, that's as a result of the work that was done in design development. And,
but we haven't seen that before.
no, you have not.
Yeah.
These last estimate numbers are updated from what we've last seen.
Yes. And there's some items that had to be taken out, and there's some items that are like the Conex boxes or other things that are in. One thing we can try to do, and next meeting is a heavy meeting, but try to schedule that presentation before you talk about the bonds and before possibly you give us final decisions on these particular items. We can try to make that happen so that gets it back into sync. But at that meeting, Jen, we are talking about doing a budget transfer.
Yes, the budget transfer amount is contingent on when we're gonna do the bonds, because we only want to transfer over what's needed until the bonds come in.
Right.
So we wanted to get an idea of the time frame, and then we know what to transfer over.
But your questions, Lisa, are totally fair. And what we can try to do is see if the team is ready to give that presentation next Tuesday. And then you can, sit back and if it takes a little bit more time to make the decision on it, we can. I'm pretty sure we can do the presentation on the bond resolution because you can always adopt it later. But we want to make sure that our bond attorney is here to go ahead and explain all of that to you. But in the next several weeks, we need to get to the point that we know how much to request in the bond.
And I understand that. I'm not trying to hold things up at all.
I don't think you are.
I just can't, I have to have that information to make.
I think we will see that, but it's a little bit separate from these below the line items.
Yeah.
Too.
I'm not talking about the below the line. That's a separate, whole different thing.
Right.
That has nothing to do with what we're looking at.
No, we need to see the latest.
Design development numbers you
estimates
need to see.
and why. We need to see the latest estimates and why, what's changed.
And that's why I produced this for the reason that you were talking about, because there was, when I was looking at these items, we as staff were ready to go ahead and are thinking about these kinds of things. I thought there's no context to these numbers without me providing these numbers. And these numbers include numbers that you haven't seen yet as far as the design development costs. So
At the same time, there's no context for these numbers for us.
Right.
right.
Yeah. Just.
I agree. I agree. But this was a start to say that here's some more information, but the estimate numbers are not, you don't have context for that.
Can we ask some questions about these below the line items? Is it worth discussing
Well,
now or?
I'd have a question on when are we gonna get the design development estimates?
The design development estimates you saw back in February.
Or whatever the next, what's the next?
The next step, she means.
So these numbers, so when I'm talking last estimate, those are the numbers that were presented in February?
Yes,
Okay, so we did see them.
yes.
What phase are we in right now?
We finished design development and they're starting to work on the construction drawings.
So we have seen everything under last estimates. Is that what you're saying?
I just don't.
Well, you saw the individual numbers.
We didn't see I never saw that it was 375,000 more or that it was 1 million more. I don't remember that ever being part of the discussion.
Okay, I don't know how it's compared, but I can make sure we do it now. And there is a particular cost that helps to offset that 375, and that's, I'm not recommending that we try to recover the time, which was about 9 months, that we did for COE items 4 through 7. But we did spend $304,951 with the architects. And so that's money that is out of the budget, that is out of the money that was in the bonds. And so that's money that if we don't replenish, then that's even farther. Once we take the funds that are already in with the bond, and then add the new bond money, we're going to be down $304,000. And so that's why I'm recommending that we consider putting that money back in, probably through the bond.
So what we're looking at all of these below the line items going into the bond? Or are there some of them that you see are
there's some
appropriate to be handled with general fund or, and when we talk general fund, are we talking is that might also be the emergency management budget? I mean, some of these relate to emergency management, the Connex boxes, I think the garage,
Yeah, well,
is that the same thing? General fund and,
well, if we charge it to the emergency management, it's gonna be charged to general fund.
yeah,
So it's
so
just,
you are talking about the same thing,
yes,
make them out of
right.
a different sub bucket, but
Right, but for example, the food bank building, what we intend to do is to buy modulars. Possibly, you know, two, maybe a third, I don't know, it depends what we need to get everybody in. And then when the project is over, we move those over to Cannon Beach Elementary to be the food bank. And that's not appropriate to be charged to the tourism room tax. So that's why you'll see in the budget, it'll be a general fund expense for that facility. Also, there's a canopy that goes around, you probably recall, there's a plaza area. And on the east side of the plaza and the north side of the plaza, there's a canopy that goes over kind of in front of those buildings. It wouldn't be appropriate to have the TLT pay for the food bank canopy. And so what I'm saying is that it'll have to come from general fund, potentially bond, but I'm reluctant to charge anything new to the bond if we can avoid it. But these are just things we have to decide, how important are they? And I mean, do you agree with the strategy, for example, of buying a building and then repurposing it later on, but at a cost of between, you know, $300,000 or so? And let's just say that's a rhetorical question, because I don't need you to answer everything tonight, but those are some of the questions that we're gonna have to have answered.
we're gonna need to buy a portable anyway, correct?
No, we could rent.
Okay,
We could rent a portable, it would be less expensive, but we would still have the same.
then we wouldn't have something that could be the new food pantry.
Correct.
And things like covered parking for police vehicles. Is that something we need?
It's just gonna prolong the life of your vehicles.
I think it's
So right now, we don't have covered parking,
Correct.
so
Any
is
idea?
it in the budget to replace vehicles more often?
No, we're replacing them quite often now. I mean, they'll last us maybe 4 to 5 years, based on wear and tear, but also
Essentially, there's an increased amount in the budget to replace vehicles more often.
we replace one a year.
And this would slow that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a covered parking. It's protects our assets.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing of comfort by any means.
Yes.
To protect the asset.
I guess my point is that it's in the police budget to replace them, so there's kind of,
Right,
those
there's a
monies
trade-off.
are, yeah, there's trade-offs.
Right.
What do you want us to do on this, Bruce?
I will try to, since we've already had the presentation, I'll ask that we do the presentation again on the estimates or the design development estimates. So that now that we've got a little bit more context, you can ask more questions, try to figure out for yourselves where these different costs are up. Still have the discussion about the bond resolution, possibly without a dollar amount. Which could be, we'll have to have a meeting and do a bond resolution at some point with a dollar amount to it. Have that conversation next Tuesday. And it's possible that you'll be comfortable enough to move forward, that we can still do the bond resolution on next Tuesday.
Well, you know, I don't know if it's even possible to do this, but I don't even care about having a presentation. We had that last presentation. It was great. It was really understandable. What I'd like to see is just underneath all these overruns, just a list of what they are and what they cost before the next meeting. I can't absorb all of this information sitting here. I need a couple days to look at it.
Understood.
And so, and that may just be a fault of mine, but I need.
No, I
to-
think we, oh.
No.
Yeah, so if I don't even care if they don't have to come here and present again necessarily, as long as we could have it spelled out for us under the 375, what that overrun is. What it is for
And
every,
City Hall, where did we save that money?
right. And the same thing with PD. What does that include? It's not any of the Conex box stuff or anything. It's something else. And where did that happen? And that way we have sort of a picture of the whole thing, not just totals, but why it happened and just in writing. And you probably have that information. I don't know if you have time to do it, but is there a numbers person, another numbers person who could just do it for you and send it out to us?
I think one of the difficulties with that and why I'm recommending a presentation is that you can ask questions because there's going to be 100 items and all of them are a little higher than what they were last time you looked. And so it won't be as intuitive as what I think it would be if you found out that the cost of a restroom floor went up, $185 or something. I don't know if you're going to be able to get down to that kind of level. But I think that the people that are doing the estimates and have seen where the increases are might be able to go ahead and explain it and say, these are the major hits that we took in trying to go ahead and bring the budget together. So we can get the presentation that was done last time. We can get you the design development numbers so you can look at them in advance. But I think it would be better if we have the people here that are doing that kind of work for us to be able to go ahead and answer the questions that you have.
Are you planning on having those people here at the next meeting anyway?
No, I don't believe so. I have to go back. Yeah,
So how much does it cost every time they come down?
I don't know, but it's not in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, I couldn't. Because they drive over, all that time is counted. So, but I mean, and maybe we could have them do it by Zoom. But I think that
That would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have to come.
You save money. If it's cheaper by Zoom, let's do Zoom.
I guess I don't want to have the same presentation that we've had at least once and actually twice before, because I asked for it when we were talking about the cost reductions on January 29th. So we basically have had it twice.
And we can go back and watch.
Yeah, and we can watch it. I don't want the same presentation. I just want the questions answered that Lisa has. I have the very same questions.
Okay, if you want to go back and watch them or whatever, and then get us the questions.
The questions are, it's simple. The questions are what accounts for the overruns? That's all. What accounts for the difference between the budget last estimate, the extra million and the extra 375 and the lesser 610? Just what kinds of things make that happen? That's all. It doesn't,
I understand.
that's it. That's my only question, really.
Okay, what are the big points?
Yeah.
Okay,
And that can be done in writing. That could be sent to us.
Mhm.
So that we can see it.
okay,
And I wouldn't even care if they did I don't need the same presentation. That was a great presentation last time. I understood it, but it wasn't in this context. That's the problem.
okay. So we can ask them to get the larger points that have changed.
Yeah.
Or what the costs are and ask us to give us a report.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then have them on Zoom.
Sure, one or two of them, yeah.
Available questions, right?
Yeah, well, you'll need both Bremick and Emmerich and CETA. Both, three.
Because there was a lot of cost savings that they showed us last time.
Yeah.
That's what I remember the most, like, no tile in the bathroom floor and all kinds of things like that. And then now I'm seeing it in this comparison. It's like, what? What happened?
Yeah.
There were things that pushed it both direction. There were some cuts and then some
Mhm.
new things, so. I guess we just need to see the latest.
Yeah, or an explanation of the latest too.
Pardon me?
An explanation of the latest too. Okay, we can provide that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
And how many of those trailers were you planning to buy? The city was going to purchase? How many do you think?
Portables, you mean?
Portables.
Portables. Police will need their own portable. And we will need at least a double wide for city hall staff. And possibly a third or small one attached to it.
So what happens?
Talking about renting those except for the one that we would buy to reuse.
Will be more than one because the current modulars, I think it's 2 or 2.5, isn't it? Do you remember, Barb?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna be,
In terms of the size of the existing food pantry.
right,
Is the size of 2.5 modulars?
Yep, about.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
And what is the food pantry's feeling moving forward regarding needed space?
I think they would like to keep it the size that it is.
So definitely don't shrink it.
Right.
But is it anticipated that they are going to need to expand?
I don't think so. I have to be a little careful because the food pantry board, which I'm on, also has asked me not to be involved in being the spokesperson for the food pantry.
Okay, but I think that is some information that would be helpful
Right.
to us.
Yeah. And I know Bruce is going to attend a food pantry board meeting,
Okay.
but it won't be before next week.
Okay, that plan acceptable? Okay. We'll get it to you as quickly as we can.
And do we need to discuss the other item?
It'll all be part of it. And unless you have questions on food bank, Connex boxes, whatever. Those numbers probably won't change unless we get new information about moving the garage.
Well, I think it's important that we keep the that cash site equivalent to what it is now.
Yes,
You know, we don't want to reduce their services because we decided to move the police department up there.
right. What is it? There's,
Important. It's an important location.
Yeah, some
And we need to
emergency
maintain-
management needs to
Right.
stay
Sure.
in place.
Yep.
yeah, and this would give them, it's just a little bit up the road and then it's on site and it would give them a flat area to go ahead and work in.
Okay.
I guess the garage is in, you brought it up, but what's the value in the project?
For us,
The storage, when we have to seize a vehicle as evidence in a crime. Maybe even storing towed vehicles that we need for a crime. Have it in there. We don't currently have a place and we're gonna be losing this garage that we have here
Okay,
now. And so we just add a spot for us to have storage as well.
okay.
Are you looking for the dollar value?
No, I mean, just, I guess I use the term value, but
Yeah.
we explain the other projects, the pros, the cons. I just hadn't heard that.
And the note here is also needed to replace storage capacity for emergency management.
And that could be additional Connex boxes.
So is that part of the 125,000 or is that extra?
It's part of the 125,000.
And when we sat down with everybody from the police department, we ranked what would be a priority for us. And obviously the emergency management's a priority, getting that moved and not in a way where we're interfering with each other, but also the garage, whether it's moving it or having to rebuild it. And then the others were just trying to be fiscally responsible and protecting the city assets. But that was a third.
So the covered garage was number 3?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's all I got for that.
Okay. Ron, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
No, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah. I enjoyed your presentation.
Yeah, shut you up.
Okay, let's go on. Bye, Ron. Monthly status report. Anybody have any questions? Are you still with me? Any questions?
I don't have any questions on the status report. No.
This hour.
Okay, mayor communications, I had Jen, thank you, Jen, forward a invitation to the town hall on Saturday with Senator Merkley. And they do want you to RSVP if you're going to attend the 2 o'clock.
Where is it going to be?
At Classic Community College.
Oh, okay. Say on the.
For half an hour.
Yeah, half an hour. Yeah. And I went through one with Bonamici and it lasted an hour and we still didn't get everything, covered. So,
I mean, half hour he'll speak and that's it.
yeah. But then the town hall meeting is after that.
Without him.
Yeah. No.
Oh,
He'll be, yeah. It's just the elected official is just a half hour, just the elected officials and Senator Merkley.
Okay.
The elected officials from Clatsop County.
Okay.
Okay. And then the 2:30 to 3:30 is the town hall. Okay. Anybody have anything for councilor communications? Good of the order?
Here, you and I met with Manzanita.
Yeah, we had a good meeting last Friday with the city manager, a counselor, and the mayor of Manzanita. Yeah. And we have a lot of the same issues. They're a little bit closer to breaking ground. They're breaking ground Saturday for their new city hall. So, yeah, but it was a good meeting. Nice people.
And is their city hall out of tsunami zone?
Yes.
So they don't have the same issues that we have at all.
Well, they're going to build the police station portion to be earthquake resistant. But just the rest of the city hall will just meet code.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot less expensive. Yeah. And Bruce, was there any update on, I see now I'm blank on his name because too much, but the fellow who came in and spoke about the tree being to the neighbors, I thought there was going to be some update on that maybe.
The information we got back from Ashley was that the city took the actions that they're supposed to take. The contractor said he was going to bring somebody, I'm sorry, not the contractor, but the owner that caused the tree problem was going to mark off the trees, separate them, but did not do that. And so there is an option, I believe, for the city, and we've not taken the action yet to recover the cost of the tree, but we can't pass that on to Mr.
Sellers.
Yeah, so it's something that, that we can take an action on. But if there's going to be some restitution towards Mr. Sellers, it would need to be him pursuing.
And I doubt if he has the wherewithal to do that. So he's just Too bad. I sure don't like that. Not fair.
He's got a good case for a negotiation. Somebody wanted to help him negotiate. There was a series of things that the other person appears to have done wrong. So.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for good of the order?
Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Nancy?
I'll go.
Nancy?
Kidding.
Jim, we've been having interviews with David from Clarity of Place. Could you give us a little background on how this came about and what it's for?
Well, our community.
Come on up.
I met David at a conference. And I was curious what Clarity of Place did, so I asked him what he does, and he's worked with other communities facing over tourism like Vail and the examples you've seen. And so I was very curious about that, so I talked to him some more, and it seemed to me that he's helped communities that face a lot of the same problems that we're facing, and looking towards the future of how do we get our community to plan for the future of tourism and residents and making that all work together from everybody's point of view. And I felt like that was something we really needed in our community. So I brought that to the board, and we've talked about it and approved to move forward with that. And the first part of that is to talk to key stakeholders to get some sense of what's happening in our community, so that when we have public meetings, which are coming up in April, I encourage everyone to participate. We put information out all over the place. Because much like you did when you're building all the projects, you wanted to get everybody's input. So as we look towards planning for the future of stewardship and destination development and all the things that the DMO works on, we want to have a clear direction of what our community wants and needs are. And that's exactly what David does. He does all the study, gets all the input, and compiles that together, and then it will provide us a report, which I believe will give us a direction to go with the DMO work that we do.
Is it being paid for out of money that the city grants to the chamber?
DMO work, yes.
And do you know how much it's costing?
Not off the top of my head. It wasn't horribly expensive, I didn't think, for what he's doing for us.
And he's coming to town, right, in another couple of weeks?
April 17th to the 18th is when we're having all the different public meetings. And I've sent you a schedule in the packet that we'll be presenting next week, just so you know.
No, for next week. Okay, what?
Not today.
Yeah.
I'm trying to jump ahead, but we'll be talking a little bit more about that.
Oh.
And I'm actually see if he wants to jump
Okay.
in. His report to me was that all the meetings have been going very well, so.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm excited to see what.
Interesting question.
Because I haven't had my turn to chat with him yet. Okay.
I'm just a little curious how much it's costing him. Not that I'm critical of it or anything. I'm just curious about how much it's costing.
I can pull that.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
Sure.
Good.
Cool. Anything else?
Thank you. Okay, Jason.
All right, a couple things. First is I've been talking to Patty Rouse, Dave Rouse's services on Saturday at 3:30 at the Cam Beach Community Church. There will be very limited parking. It'll be very crowded, I'm sure. But there will be overflow parking at the school and also at the Telvana cash site, where they'll have shuttles to bring people to the church. So obviously try to get there early. And then the second thing I have, Citizens Academy is coming up. That's what I've been working on. And if you have any family or friends that are interested, it's on Monday night. So you guys could attend as well. But, I think there's only one Tuesday, which is after Labor or Memorial Day. But yeah, I'll be posting something again on our website tomorrow to update it. That's always a fun thing. I know former councilors and mayors have taken it. So
The pressure.
No. It's a good way to learn more about your local police departments, and everybody participates now, state police, the sheriff's office, and all the police departments, so.
Thank you.
Are you going to send something out or have we gotten something?
I can email it to you guys.
Could you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bruce?
Yeah, I had two things. One, I got a note from Karen during the meeting. It says Facebook just lit up due to a 7.5 magnitude earthquake in Taiwan. Residents are asking if this will trigger an alert for the North Coast for tsunamis. And Justin at the County Emergency Management just confirmed, no, it's not. There's no anticipation of a distant tsunami on that. The other one is I'm glad for Dave, but UPS Dave retired effective today.
Oh, no.
But, I didn't
say anything.
No, he announced it on his page and messaged Karen.
Unhappy about that. Gracie is very unhappy.
Yeah, my dog's gonna be really sad. Yeah. Always leaves treats at the door. And I always get my UPS packages. Now we probably won't get them for a while.
We've been so lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the first people I met.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy. Jeez. Is he retiring, actually retiring?
Yes.
Oh, and that's good.
And today was
Nice for him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Aaron, correct.
Today was
Today was his last day.
Effective today. Yeah, today was his last day.
Oh,
He had messaged me that he didn't want to announce anything until today, and all the final paperwork was through. He took the month of February off on vacation, so that's why we hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
They were wondering why he wasn't back in March, so he was just waiting till everything was final to let us know. But staff, and he posted something on his Facebook page. And Justin Gibbs at Emergency Management also posted something. I told him it'd be good if Emergency Management got some up so that the community knew from an official person and not just,
We could have had a proclamation.
I'm gonna see time for it there.
That's true. That's right. Maybe we should think about that.
I really miss him.
Thanks for ending it on a down note. Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.